beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today we're going to talk about a little palette remix with Harvest of Souls and Enchanted Autumn from Fantasy Cosmetica. However, before I get into the palette building, I want to give you the rundown on the Fantasy Cosmetica Black Friday deals. First and foremost, you need to know that the Fantasy Cosmetica Black Friday sale starts on Sunday, November 24th and runs through Tuesday, December 3rd. So you do have a good while, more than a week, to complete your shopping. However, I do anticipate that some of these sales will sell out. I am not here to try to make you feel FOMO. I just want to give you as good of info as I possibly can. So I wouldn't sleep on this sale. There are some very, very good deals going on here. Enchanted Autumn, my collaboration with the brand, actually is going to be on sale. It's going to be 10% off of bundles and individual items. Now, you cannot stack affiliate codes on the Enchanted Autumn sale. However, this is most likely the only time this collection will be on sale. I'm not saying that we would never do another sale, but this is probably the time to snag it at a discount. Like I said, I'm not here to create any urgency or FOMO. I'm just trying to give you the scoop. The Cradled in Ice palette will be 20% off. Brushes are going to be on sale up to 25% off. There's kind of a range there. All of the lip oils and lipsticks are half off. I absolutely love the Lost Library lipsticks. Just FYI, my favorite lipstick in the Lost Library collection is the shade Buried, and my favorite lip oil is called Ancient One. I think I've gone through two of those already. I believe I'm on my third Ancient One lip oil, so it's really good. So those are some of my top picks from the lip collection. Obviously, I love Enchanted Autumn, but I made it, so take like 6,000 grains of salt with that recommendation. And then, of course, all of their class palettes and the class palette bundles are going to be on sale. Those are on mega sale, 30 to 40% off. Singles, gels, and perfumes are all 30% off. I'm not sure if the fragrance will be restocked before the sale. I know some of their fragrances are sold out right now, but I do want to mention that on top of these incredibly good Black Friday deals, you can stack affiliate codes. So I have an affiliate code. It's just my first name, Amanda, and you will save an extra 10% on almost everything on the site. So the Harvest of Souls collection is not discounted for Black Friday, but you can save 10% with an affiliate code. And then everything else you can stack the code on top of, except for Enchanted Autumn. I know that was kind of complicated. I will type out all of the information in the description box too if I rattled that off too quickly for you. But I wanted to make sure you were aware of these extremely good Black Friday deals from Fantasy Cosmetica. And now for the palette building, I've been wanting to do some palette remixes with the Harvest of Souls palette combined with the Enchanted Autumn palette. Obviously, I'm more than a little biased in favor of Enchanted Autumn, but I think this is truly the perfect chameleon palette. It stands on its own perfectly well, but it also blends with any and every color story because it's really sitting at that midpoint between neutrals and colors. It's not quite neutral enough to be a neutral palette, but it's not colorful enough to be a colorful palette. And that in betweenness makes it such a great companion palette for almost anything. It works with neutrals, it works with colors. When I'm setting up to remix palettes, I like to gather up all my supplies. So, of course, I need some magnetic eyeshadow palettes. Then I need an empty magnetic palette to curate my new creation. And this is my pretty strong magnet that I use to depot the shadows. And of course, I'm also going to need some makeup wipes because I'm going to do some swatching to make sure that I like the way my color stories work together. So that's really all you need to get started. And this magnet is super easy to pull the shadows out. You do need to be a little bit careful because you don't want to aggressively depot the shadows because you might crack, especially a very shimmery shadow might crack a little bit. So just be careful. And you can see here I pulled out 6 shades from each palette. We're going to do a 50-50 split, half Harvest of Souls, half Enchanted Autumn. And for this BYOP, this little palette that I'm putting together, I really focused on greens and purples. If you know me, then that'll make perfect sense. Those are my two favorite eyeshadow colors to wear. So I just pulled the greens and purples that I was most attracted to initially, and then I just kind of mixed them around and rearranged them until I got a palette that I was happy with. I wanted to have just a little bit of that neutral edge mixed in with shades like Luna and Scorpio and Foggy from Enchanted Autumn. I feel like it really grounds the color story, makes it a little bit more earthy feeling, which I personally am really attracted to, that grungy, earthy edge to my color stories. When I'm building these palette remixes, I am really trying to think about which shadows would actually create useful, easy to do looks. So it's not just about which colors I choose, but I also like to get really close to an even split of mattes and shimmers. That's just what I prefer in my palettes and what I find most useful for creating actual eye looks. But I also want a variety as far as I want to make sure that I have some lighter shimmers, some darker shimmers, some lighter mattes, some darker mattes, so that I can add depth and brightness, or I want to be able to soften a look or make it bolder, make it smokier. So I like to have a variety in both finishes, and I'm really trying to pay attention to that when I'm putting together not just colors, but the shadows as a whole. And I do think that in these swatches, the two bright metallic green shades look more similar here than they actually look in life. You can really tell more of a difference in a flash lighting situation. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. First, I want to pop up just the palette itself here, and I'm going to put the shade names here on the screen, and also I'm going to list them out in the description box. If you happen to have the Enchanted Autumn and Harvest of Souls palettes on hand, or if you're planning on picking them up during the Black Friday sale, then you can recreate this really easily. I already did the legwork. I'm going to give you the list down below so that you can try out this little green and purple color story. I really like this. I could see myself getting a ton of use out of this little curated palette. It's also just very satisfying how well these shades work together. So I'm very happy with this. Of course, it's green and purple. It's fantasy Cosmetica. I could hardly ask for more from an eyeshadow palette. However, I am going to push myself out of my comfort zone and do a look that heavily features these blue shades in the Harvest of Souls palette because I was so firmly in my wheelhouse with that green and purple little palette. I want to push myself creatively, and I also just think that these shades will look great together, even if I'm not the biggest blue gal in the world, because I'm not. I actually love the way that this turned out. First and foremost, if you put a shimmery, bright metallic silver in a palette, that automatically gets my attention, hence why the shade Libra exists and why you see me gravitate towards it so much. But I love the way that these brighter blue and turquoise shades are really balanced out by the very dusty, dusky purple shades from the Enchanted Autumn palette. They're not quite purple, they're not quite gray. They are just these perfectly dusty shades that really, again, ground a color story for me and make it feel just more approachable for my own personal style and taste. As I mentioned, I do think about the finished looks that will potentially come from a palette as I'm curating a set of shadows like this. So the fact is, when it comes to a bright blue, a bright turquoise, or even these brighter pinky shades that, again, are not really my number one top favorite, I am ultimately always going to be pairing shades like that with something a little bit more neutral, with something a little bit more dusty or grungy to tone down those shades, or maybe just not even tone them down, but direct the overall look into that more kind of earthy, grungy type of vibe, even with a bright pink or bright blue. Again, I'm not sure if I'm making sense here, but in my head, it makes sense. So hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. I like the balance in dusty and bold tones here. It makes these bright blues and pinks feel way more approachable and way more like my style, or I can envision myself making a look here. But I can also see this being an exciting color story for somebody who is a lot more gravitating towards those bright, bold pinks and blues. So I think this is a really wonderful midpoint, and ultimately, this palette turned out way, way better than I expected. I knew I was going to love the green and purple version because obviously green and purple are my favorite colors. So I knew that I would be attracted to that color story. But I didn't know that I was going to love this one. And I think this has just a great balance between light, medium, and deep shades, a great balance between neutrals and colors. And ultimately, this little color story, this set of swatches here, makes me want to use this palette that does have a lot of colors that I don't typically gravitate towards in it. So I think that's a win in and of itself. And it also was fun to just flex myself creatively a little bit with a different type of color story. I always have fun building palettes, remixing palettes, and just experimenting with new color combinations. So I hope that you had as much fun with this one as I did. And make sure you check the description box for more info about these palettes, about the Black Friday sale. I would love to hear if you're planning on picking anything up from Fantasy Cosmetica, or are there any other brands that you're really excited about their Black Friday sales? I always love to hear what you think about things too. So please leave all your thoughts and comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. I love your face. Bye.